Welcome to the guide. This time we're taking a look at Frost Mage. Frost Mage is looking incredibly strong for both Mythic Plus and raiding in Shadowlands, so if you're looking to master Frost or just brush up a bit, this guide is built from the bottom up to explain the foundation of Frost and what makes it unique all the way up to those nuances that let you squeak out just a bit more damage. Let's go. What is the foundation of Frost? These are the fundamental building blocks that affect how a spec works and what makes it unique. Brain Freeze. Frostbolt has a 30% chance to empower your next flurry to be instant cast, deal 50% increased damage, and apply Winter's Chill to the target. Winter's Chill is a debuff that causes the target to take damage as if it were frozen, which lasts 6 seconds and has 2 stacks. The word frozen is key to Frost Mage damage, and here's why. Shatter multiplies the critical strike chance of your Frost spells against frozen targets by 1.5 and adds an additional 50% critical strike chance. Fingers of Frost, Frostbolt has a 15% chance, and Frozen Orb has a 10% chance to grant a charge of Fingers of Frost. Fingers of Frost causes your next Ice Lance to deal damage as if the target were frozen. Let's take a look at our core abilities and see how they interact with the foundation. Frostbolt. Launch a bolt of frost at the enemy, causing damage and slowing their speed by 50% for 8 seconds. This is your filler when you have less than 5 targets. Ice Lance. Fling a shard of ice at the target. Ice Lance damage is tripled against frozen targets. You'll use Ice Lance to consume Fingers of Frost and Winter's Chill. They can overlap, but you don't gain damage by doing so. It's best to consume Fingers of Frost procs before you look to go into your standard Brain Freeze setup, which is Frostbolt, Flurry, Ice Lance, Ice Lance. Flurry. Unleash a flurry of ice, striking the target 3 times. Each hit reduces the target's movement speed by 70% for 1 second. While Brain Freeze is active, Flurry applies Winter's Chill, causing your target to take damage as if it were frozen. Blizzard. Ice shards pelt the target area, dealing frost damage over 7 seconds and reducing movement speed by 50% for 3 seconds. Each time Blizzard deals damage, the cooldown of Frozen Orb is reduced by half a second. Frozen Orb launches an orb of swirling ice up to 40 yards forward, which deals frost damage to 8 enemies it passes through, grants 1 charge of Fingers of Frost the first time it deals damage to an enemy, and slows enemies by 30% for 3 seconds. Finally, for core abilities, we have Arcane Explosion. Cause an explosion of magic around the caster, dealing arcane damage to all enemies within 10 yards. As it stands, this will be your filler over Frostbolt when there are 5+ enemies, when you can safely be in range and you have enough mana to use it. Now on to our cooldowns. Icy Veins accelerates your spell casting for 20 seconds, granting 30% haste and prevents damage from delaying your spell casts. Cold Snap resets the cooldown of Ice Barrier, Frost Nova, Cone of Cold, and Ice Block. And Time Warp. This is the ability your raid will yell at you about when you use it at the wrong time. Increases haste by 30% for all party members for 40 seconds. Allies will be unable to benefit from Bloodlust, Heroism, or Time Warp again for 10 minutes. Passives. Most of our passives are in the foundation section. Mastery Icicles is the exception. Casting Frostbolt or Flurry grants you an icicle. Casting Ice Lance causes all icicles stored to begin launching at the target, dealing frost damage. Up to 5 icicles can be stored. Excess icicles will be automatically launched. Mastery Icicles also increases Frozen Orb damage, scaling with your mastery. Defensives. First off, we have Ice Barrier, a 1-minute absorb shield. Melee attacks against you will reduce the attacker's move speed by 50%. Ice Block encases you in a block of ice, protecting you from all damage for 10 seconds. During that time, you can't attack, move, or cast spells. Causes hypothermia, preventing you from casting Ice Block again for 30 seconds. Finally, for defensives, we have Mirror Image. The spell is often misinterpreted as a DPS cooldown. However, it's simply meant to be a defensive. The damage it provides is literally a joke. Let's take a look at crowd control. Frost Nova blasts enemies within 12 yards, freezing them in place for 10 seconds. Cone of Cold, targets in a cone in front of you take frost damage and have movement speed slowed by 70% for 5 seconds. And Polymorph, transform the enemy into a sheep wandering around for 1 minute. While affected, the victim quickly regenerates health. Damage will cancel the effect. Only works on beast, humanoids, and critters. Let's take a look at our movement abilities. We have Blink, teleports you forward 20 yards or until reaching an obstacle, frees you from stuns and bonds, James Bonds. Alter Time, unlocked at level 58, alters the fabric of time, returning you to your current location and health when cast a second time or after 10 seconds, effect negated by long distance death. Here is our personal utility. Summon Water Elemental, summons a water elemental to follow and fight for you. This also gives you access to your pet's ability Freeze, which is like a targeted version of Frost Nova. You will always have your water elemental up unless you are using the Lonely Winter talent. Invisibility turns you invisible over 3 seconds, reducing threat each second. While invisible, you are untargetable by enemies, lasts 20 seconds, damage cancels the effect. Counterspell, your standard interrupt on a 24-second cooldown. Spell Steal, steals a beneficial magic effect from the target, effect lasts a maximum of 2 minutes. Teleport you to a major city. And Fire Blast, this spell doesn't really fit anywhere, it's not part of your core rotation, you will occasionally use it when you are on the move and you have nothing else to cast while moving. Now on to our group utility. First we have Arcane Intellect, infuses the target with 5% intellect for 1 hour. If you're in a group, all members will receive the buff. Conjure Refreshment, conjure mana food for you and your allies. Remove Curse, removes all curses from a friendly target. Slow Fall, slows a group member's falling speed for 30 seconds. And Portal, create a portal teleporting group members who use it to a major city. Let's take a quick look at talents. We're not going to talk about every single talent. Instead, we'll just take a look at the main talent choices in each row. This is based on top players on Warcraft logs as well as guides. This is what performs best right now. At the end, we will give a quick look at the builds you should be looking to run. Row 15, Lonely Winter will be your pick here. Replaces Summon Water Elemental and causes your Frostbolt, Ice Lance, and Flurry to deal 25% increased damage. On row 25, Shimmer gives Blink another charge, takes it off the GCD, and allows you to cast it while casting another spell. Row 30, these are all viable options in different situations, however, some are more powerful than others. Let's start with Rune of Power. This is a great option when you don't need to move more than 8 yards away from your rune, effectively losing its value. Focus Magic is your first alternative when you can't safely stay inside your Rune of Power. Focus Magic is applied to a friendly target for 30 minutes. When they crit with spells, you gain intellect and 5% crit chance for 10 seconds. This is great on another Frost Mage if you both agree to use it, effectively getting 10% crit. Finally, Incanter's Flow is your option when none of the above is viable. Row 35, Chain Reaction is your go-to talent here. Your Ice Lances against frozen targets increase the damage of your Ice Lances by 3% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Alternatively, when fights aren't long enough to get 5 stacks regularly, Frozen Touch is your option. Frozen Touch is good for leveling and world questing. Row 40 is your optional row. Pick what best suits the situation. The best all-around talent is Frigid Winds. Ice Ward is great for leveling and questing with War Mode on, coupled with the Burst of Cold PvP talent. Row 45, Splitting Ice is the pick. Ice Lance and Icicles deal 5% increased damage and hit a second nearby target for 65% of the damage. Ebonbolt and Glacial Spike also hit a nearby target for 80% damage. And row 50, Thermal Void. Icy Vein's duration is increased by 10 seconds. Your Ice Lances against frozen targets extend your Icy Veins by an additional second. Here are the recommended talent setups, leveling, and for single target and AoE, it's currently best to run this build. Now let's take a look at the rotation. While we talk about rotation, keep in mind one of the core parts of Frost Mage, the Brain Freeze setup, which you will be using in every scenario other than 5+ targets. Understanding this will make the full rotation easier to understand. When you have a Brain Freeze proc, Frostbolt, Flurry, Ice Lance, Ice Lance. That's it. You start with Frostbolt because Frostbolt has a chance to give you another Brain Freeze proc. If you have Fingers of Frost, you always want to spend those before you cast Flurry. This is because Brain Freeze and Fingers of Frost effectively do the same thing, cause the target to take damage as if it were frozen. These don't stack, so by overlapping them, you lose damage. The best way to avoid this is simply spend Fingers of Frost first. Now that we understand that, let's talk about single target. Remember that rotation is just a blanket term used in WoW. This is a priority system, meaning you always want to use the highest priority ability over a lower priority ability if it's available. On top, we have Icy Veins, then Rune of Power, don't overlap, Ice Lance with Fingers of Frost, Ice Lance with Winter's Chill on the target. Remember, this happens after your Brain Freeze and Powered Flurry, and you get 2 stacks of Winter's Chill, which lasts 6 seconds. Flurry only with Brain Freeze after you've cast a Frostbolt. Then Frozen Orb. Blizzard as long as you have 2 targets. And finally, Frostbolt as your filler. As for AoE, some of the things are shifted around if there are 5 or more targets. Icy Veins and Rune of Power are still on top of the priority. Frozen Orb and Blizzard move to the top as your core abilities. Flurry takes priority with Brain Freeze over Ice Lance with Fingers of Frost. You will no longer use the Brain Freeze setup. Finally, you will use Arcane Explosion to fill if you have the mana. If you don't have the mana, Frostbolt. Now on to Azerite. You're looking for 1 Clockwork Heart, 1 Frigid Grasp, 2 Heart of Darkness, 1 Packed Ice, and 1 Whiteout. For essences, your major essence, you're looking for either Guardian of Azeroth or Vision of Perfection. And for minor, you want to look for Lucid Dreams, Ancient Flame, Strife, or Lethal Strikes. And there it is, Frost Mage. I now know why so many people call Frost Mage their main spec. It's just enjoyable to play, and I'm not usually an advocate of spec over class, but I get it. We'll just say that. If you stuck around, I'm glad you're here. And if you're not already, I'd love to have you sub. Shadowlands is right around the corner, so what is the plan for the channel? More guides. Simple and to the point guides for World of Warcraft. It will be like a pop-up book for World of Warcraft. Thank you all so much for dropping by. Until the next one, be good.